Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel AWS DevOps Niche Level. So in this video, we are going to see how to set up the VPC peering in AWS. So what is VPC peering? It is basically connecting the two VPCs via the AWS private link. And for that, we create a peering connection, which is one of the component within the networks in AWS. So in order to make the two VPCs communicate to each other, we basically create a private link via the peering connection. So now what is a prerequisite for this VPC peering? So we need to have two VPCs. There should be a VPC on the source region, and there should be a VPC on the destination region, which we need to peer, and they need to have their respective public and private subnets with the EC2 instances launched, and there should be an appropriate route table entries. So that would be the prerequisite for this lab. So already I have set up this VPC. We have a source VPC in the Oregon region, and there is a destination VPC, which is in Mumbai. So I'm going to create a peering connection to enable the communication between these two VPCs. So now as part of the lab, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to launch the EC2 instances. That is, I'm going to set up a web server and I'm going to set up an app server on both the VPCs. So web server, I'm going to launch it inside a public subnet, and app server, I'm going to launch it inside a private subnet across both the VPCs. And once I do that, I'm going to create a peering connection and also update the route table entries. And we need to set up the appropriate security group configurations for the instances in both the VPCs. Then as a third step, once the required peering connection configuration has been set up, once the route table configurations has been updated and the security groups configured appropriately for the instances, so we are going to see, or we are going to test the communication of the application server running in a private subnet in the VPC1, and whether if it is able to reach to the application server running inside a private subnet in the VPC2. So just to explain you this. So this is the setup that we have currently. So this is my source VPC. I'm going to name it as VPC_1. And this VPC is in the Oregon region. And this is our destination VPC. Let me name it as VPC_2. And this VPC is set up in the Mumbai region. So in the source VPC, we have two subnets. We have a public subnet and we have a private subnet. So this is my public subnet. And this is my private subnet. So on the public subnet, I'm going to launch a web server. So this will be my EC2 instance, which is a web server. And on the private subnet, I'm going to launch an instance, which is the app server. So here on the private subnet, I'm going to launch an app server. Okay, so we are going to log into the app server from the web server. From the web server, we will try to log into the app server. Now, we will have the same setup, the Mumbai region also, where there will be a public subnet running a web server, and there will be a private subnet running the app server. my private subnet, which will have the app server. So once this setup is done, we are going to configure the peering connection, which will be a private link between the two VPCs, right? So this will be the peering connection that we are going to set. And this peering connection is nothing but it's a AWS private link. And once this peering connection has been set up, we are going to check the communication between these two servers which are inside a private subnet. Basically, I'm going to test the communication between the app server, whether this app server is able to reach this app server in the private subnet of Mumbai. And similarly, if the app server in Mumbai, if it is able to communicate to the app server in Oregon via this private connection, which is the peering connection, right? So this is the lab that we are going to do. And already we have the VPC set up. We just need to launch the instances across both the VPCs in the public and the private subnets respectively. So now let's continue with the lab. Now what I will do as a first step, I'm going to launch the web server and the app server inside the source VPC. So let me go to the AWS console, and this is my Oregon region. Source VPC is here. So I'm going to launch a web server on this region. So let me go to the EC2 console. Okay, so launch a web server. And for the AMI, let me select the Linux to AMI. An instance type, I'm going to keep it as t2.micro. Key pair, let me select a key pair. And regarding the network settings, I'm going to select my VPC, the source VPC, which I have in the Oregon region, whose CIDR is 10.0.0.0/26. And this being a web server, I'm going to create it inside a public subnet. So as part of the VPC creation, I have created the private and public subnets before. I'm just pointing the EC2 instances to those subnet. Now with respect to the security group, let me just allow the SSH access for our web server. And we will go ahead and launch the instance. So while this web server instance is getting launched, I'm going to launch another instance, which is the app server that will be running inside a private subnet. I'll name it as app server. I will select the same Linux to AMI. We select the key pair. And network settings, I'm going to select my source VPC, which is this one. And subnet will be the private subnet, right? And with respect to the security group, I'm going to allow SSH access only from my web server. So what I will do is, in the source type custom, I'm just going to add the CIDR for my public subnet, so which is 10.0.0.0/27. That is the CIDR for my public subnet. And let us go ahead and launch this instance. Okay. So you can see that the instances are getting launched. And we will do the same thing in the Mumbai region also. I will go to the Mumbai region. And here also we have a VPC. This is my VPC name in Mumbai, my backup VPC Mumbai. And on this VPC, I have two subnets here also. There is a public subnet and a private subnet. And there is a route table for the public subnet and the private subnet. Then we have an internet gateway also, which is attached to the public subnet. So here, let me go ahead and launch two EC2 instances, one web server and one app server. Launch instances. Again, I'll name it as a web server. Like the Linux 2 AMI. And key pair. We will try to create a new key pair in Mumbai region and let it be in the .ppk format. And I'll give it a name. I'll create a key pair, and in the network settings, I'm going to select my VPC in Mumbai. That is my backup VPC Mumbai. And this is again a web server. So I'm going to map it to the public subnet. And security group, let me allow access only from my IP address. Launch the instance. Now let's launch the app server, which will be inside a private subnet. Okay, we'll name it as app server and Linux 2 AMI. Okay, again, I will select the key pair. Network, let me select my VPC in Mumbai. Then subnet will be the private subnet. That is it. And regarding the security group rule, let me allow the SSH access from the public subnet. That is the web server. So let me see what is the CIDR of the public subnet, the Mumbai region. Go to the VPC. And if I click the subnets here, this is my public subnet. And let me just take a note of the CIDR. CIDR is 172.31.1.0/24. Let me copy this. And here, I'm just going to say custom and give the CIDR of the public subnet. Okay. So we should be able to access the application server only from the web server. Now let us go ahead and launch this instance. Okay, so now we have set up the app server and web server on the source region, which is Oregon. And we have also set up our web server and app server on the destination region, which is Mumbai. I think the app server is still getting launched. Fine. So meanwhile, what we will do, we will set up a peering connection to establish a private link between these two VPCs. So how do we set up the peering connection? So I am in my source region, Oregon, and let me search for VPC here. And if I come down, you can see this option, peering connections. So let me go ahead and click that. And I will say create peering connection. Let me give it a name, test peering connection. And what is the VPC ID of the requester? This is nothing but our source VPC, right? And we can able to peer with the VPCs running on the other AWS account also. So we just need to select another account and mention the 12-digit account number. But in our case, we will try to peer within the same account, but to a different region, right? So basically, I'm selecting my account and the region will be another region. So first, let me select the the requester VPC. Which is the requester VPC? It is the my domo VPC, which is in Oregon region, and this is the CIDR of that particular VPC. Right now, pairing with another VPC, and which is that region. Our secondary VPC is in the Mumbai region, right? So I'm just going to select another region here, and let me select the Mumbai region, which is Asia Pacific Mumbai AP South 1. And what is the VPC ID of the acceptor VPC? So there is nothing but the VPC ID of the VPC in Mumbai. So let me just grab the VPC ID of the Mumbai region. So this is the one. Let me just copy that. That is it. So I'll just say create the peering connection. So you can see that it is initiating request to the destination VPC. So now if I go to the peering connections, you can see that it is actually giving a message pending acceptance, because it has initiated a request to the destination VPC in Mumbai. And for this private link to be activated, we need to accept that request from the VPC in the Mumbai region. So let me go to the VPC in Mumbai. Right, so this is my Mumbai region, and this is my VPC. So here, if I go to actions, or first I need to go to the peering connections tab here. You can see here it is saying pending acceptance. So I just select this peering connection, go to actions, and just say accept request. Right, so once I accept the request in my destination region, this private link or this peering connection is going to get activated. So now you can see that it is provisioning the peering connection, and now it is active. So we'll verify the status in both the regions. If I refresh the status in the Oregon region, you can see that this private link, this peering connection is active. Similarly, if I check the status in the Mumbai region, this connection is active. Right, so now we have set up this peering connection. So these are all the steps we have done. We have launched the instances for web servers and app servers on both the VPCs. This is completed. Then we have also created a peering connection. That is also done. But pending configurations, we need to update the route table entries accordingly, and we need to update the security group configurations for the instances. Now, how do we update the route table entries? Now, let me come to my source VPC, and I'll go to my route tables here. Okay, and if I go to my public route table, let us see the routes. So what is the route here? If the source is internet, we are pointing it to the internet gateway, right? So that is a route for the public subnet. But for our lab scenario, what we are going to do, we are going to make the instances in the private subnet talk to each other. Right? So I'm going to go to the route table private, go to the routes. I'm going to edit the route, right? So here I'm going to add a route that if the destination is our VPC CIDR in Mumbai, then what should be the target? Target should be, it should go via the peering connection, right? So let me take the CIDR in the Mumbai region. What is the CIDR in the Mumbai region? Let me just go to my VPC in Mumbai, and I will try to grab the CIDR for this VPC. You can see here, this is the CIDR for the VPC in Mumbai. So let me copy this. And here I mentioned that if the destination is the VPC in Mumbai, it should go via the peering connection, right? So when the application server in this private subnet has to reach the VPC in Mumbai, an application server in a VPC in Mumbai, it has to go via this peering connection. So in the target, we select that peering connection, right? So this is one of the configuration which is on the source VPC. I will say save the changes. We are going to do the same thing on the destination VPC. So in the Mumbai VPC, I'm going to go to the subnets and let me click the private subnet. Again, go to the route table there. Sorry, I'll go to the route tables basically. I'll go to the private route table and go to the routes, edit the routes. So here I will add a route that if the destination is the VPC in Oregon, what is the CADR for the VPC in Oregon? It is 10.0.0/16, right? Again, go via the peering connection. So basically we have mentioned the destination as our source VPC, which is the Oregon region, right? And in our last configuration, we mentioned the destination as our VPC in Mumbai. So let me go ahead and save the changes. And now we have updated the route table configurations for the private subnet, because we are going to have the two application servers in a private subnet to talk to each other, right? So now we will update the appropriate security group configurations for both the instances. So now, if I come to my source VPC in Oregon, and if I check the security group of my app server, let us review the security group of our app server. Let me go to the instances. And let me go to this security group for the app server. Click security. So edit the inbound rules. So we have given an SSH rule, but I'm also going to add a custom TCP rule where it can accept connections on a well-known port that is coming from the VPC in Mumbai. So this will be my rule. So I'm opening all the well-known ports that is between 0 to 65535. And here I'm going to mention the the IP range as a custom. And here I'm going to mention my VPC destination as Mumbai. Okay. So any connection coming from the VPC in Mumbai, it has to accept it. So what I will do is I'm going to again take the VPC CADR for the Mumbai region. This is the CADR, right? So let me copy this. I'll mention it here. And let us save these rules. Okay. So similarly, I will do the same configuration for the app server in the Mumbai region also. Click security, go to the security group, edit the inbound rules, add a rule, mention custom TCP, mention the well-known ports, and here you will mention the source VPC CADR, that is the VPC CADR of the Oregon region, which is 10.0.0.0/15. Save the rules. Okay, so now we are done with all our configurations in terms of updating the route table entries, updating the security group configurations. Now we will try to log into the application server on both the VPCs and see whether they are able to communicate with each other, right? So now we are just going to validate the setup that we have done, if it is working as per expectations. So let me go back to my source VPC and let me try to log into my web server. And from there, I will log into the app server. Okay, so I'm in my web server. Let me grab this IP address. So let me add the credentials. Okay, and since I'm going to log into the app server from the web server for the authentication, I'm going to use the key forwarding feature, right? So I'm going to forward the keys so that the authentication can happen from the web server to the app server for this particular session. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the Pagient utility. In Pagient, I'm going to add the key, whatever I'm using to log into the web server, which is this one. And here, I'm going to enable the key forwarding. If I go to the auth, you can see here, allow agent forwarding. So I'm going to enable this also. Okay. Now we can log into the web server. The default user is EC2-user. And from here, I'm going to directly log into the app server. So I will say SSH EC2-user at what is the IP address of the app server. So let us just verify it. It is 10.0.0.58. So SSH EC2-user at 10.0.0.58. So you can see it's asking, are you sure you want to continue connecting? I will say yes. Now you can see that we have connected to the app server from the web server on our source VPC, that is in the Oregon region, right? Do a sudo su minus to switch to root, and I will. So I am in the app server, which is hosted inside a private subnet in the Oregon region. So now I'm going to verify whether from this app server, if we are able to connect to the app server in Mumbai. So I'm just going to do a ping test, which will confirm the connectivity, because now the connectivity is happening via the peering connection, which is the AWS private link. And for that, since I'm going to initiate a ping test, so let me open the ICMP port also on the security group for the app server in Mumbai. So if you see here, I'm in the Mumbai region, and let me go to the security group. I will edit the inbound rules, and I'm going to add a rule here wherein I'm going to open the ICMP port. So I will say all ICMP v4. And what is the source VPC CIDR? It is 10.0.0.0/16. Let us save the rules. Okay. So now we have enabled the ICMP connectivity from the source VPC to the destination VPC, especially onto the private app server. So now what I will do, I will just try to ping the private IP address of the app server, which is in the Mumbai region. So this is my app server on the source region VPC, Oregon. And from here, I'm going to ping the private IP address of the app server in Mumbai. So let me see what is the private IP address of the Mumbai app server. Go to the instances. And if I go into the details, you can see here, this is the private IP, right? So if I do the ping, the connectivity is anyways going to happen via the peering connection, the private link. So let us see if that is working. Enter. So can you see here? I can able to reach the app server in Mumbai from the app server in Oregon, and the two both are residing inside a private subnet. How this connectivity is happening? It is all happening via the peering connection, what we set up, right? So let's do this reverse communication from the app server in the Mumbai region to the app server in Oregon. Okay, so for the testing of communication from the private server, that is the app server in Mumbai VPC, to the app server in the Oregon VPC. So let me log into the app server here. I am in the Mumbai region. So first, let me log into the web server. We upload the keys. And for forwarding the keys for authentication from the web server to the app server, so I'm going to basically use this pageant. I think it is saying it's already running. So here, let me see if the keys for the web server, what I'm using in Mumbai, if it has been uploaded. So yeah, I'm just uploading this key, which I'm going to forward to the app server. If I go to the auth, I'm just allowing this agent forwarding. Okay, so EC2-user, you can see I'm already in the web server in the Mumbai region. And from here, I'm going to log into the app server. What is the IP address of the app server? Here it is. I'll say yes. Fine. Now I have logged into the app server inside the Pi region. So from here, we will just try to do a ping of the app server in the Oregon region. So I will just say ping, and let me grab the app server IP address in the Oregon region. So this is the app server IP address 10.0.0.50. Okay, so our communication, the ping communication from the app server in Mumbai VPC is not working. It's because of the reason that I have not created this security group rule for the ICMP IPv4. Now I just created this rule where we are accepting the ICMP connections from our destination VPC in Mumbai. Right? So this rule was not there. That is the reason the connectivity was not working. So now if I give the ping command, so we are in our app server in Mumbai, and if I want to do a ping to this app server in Oregon, which is 10.0.0/.58, we can see here, now the connectivity is happening, right? So again, this is my app server in the source VPC. So here also I'm doing a ping to my app server in the destination VPC. That is a private, with a private IP. You can see here, the connectivity is happening from the source VPC to the destination VPC. Similarly here, the connectivity is happening from the destination VPC to the source VPC. So now it's confirmed that basically we are able to do this via the VPC peering connection. Okay, so this is how we set up the peering connection, and I hope this lab was helpful to everyone. And if at all you have any specific feedback, you can feel free to provide your comments. And I also wanted to just let you know that I do conduct training sessions on AWS and DevOps. So if at all anyone would be interested to take these trainings from me, you can send an email to the mentioned email ID. So it will be basically a training session via the Zoom, and the class recordings will be uploaded onto the Google Drive, and the access will be provided to you. So whether it is AWS or DevOps, it's going to span for at least 5 to 6 weeks of interactive course, and it would be fully focused on the hands-on lab exercises. So that's all I had for this video. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. And if you are liking my videos, please give a thumbs up and add your comments as well. So thank you all for all your support, and I will meet you all in my next video.